Hello everyone. Today we will have obstetric lecture, and today we will discuss about induction of labor. That means artificially we start the labor procedure. Now we are at the obstetric topics which are related to labor or delivery. So before proceeding to actual procedure of that is mechanism of labor and management of labor, we will deal with these topics which are related with labor. So today's topic is induction of labor. That means we artificially induce the labor. Now definition of this induction of labor is initiation of labor by artificial means or prior to its spontaneous onset at a viable gestational age with the aim of achieving vaginal delivery in a pregnant woman with intact membranes. This means initiation of uterine contractions by any method which is medical, surgical or combined for the purpose of vaginal delivery. This is in short the meaning of induction of labor. That means initiation of uterine contractions. That means we start the uterine contractions by any method, that is by giving any medicine or by doing some minor surgical procedure or by doing both of these, that is combined for the purpose of vaginal delivery, and this should be at the aim of achieving vaginal delivery in a pregnant woman with intact membranes, in whom membranes are not ruptured. So that is definition, that is initiation of labor by artificial means. Artificial means medical, surgical or combined prior to its spontaneous onset. That means before spontaneous onset of labor at a viable gestational age. Viable gestational age means completion of full term, that is 36 weeks, for the aim of achieving vaginal delivery. That is the definition by WHO. Before we induce the labor, we should inform the patient and family members about the benefits and complications, or also complications related to this induction of labor. So before the induction of labor, we should take proper consent and permission from patient and relatives. And this purpose of induction of labor, that means before starting with purpose, that is there is a term which is called as augmentation. That means stimulation of spontaneous contractions, both in frequency and intensity, that are considered inadequate for successful delivery. That means we have to induce or we have to stimulate for the contractions, and contractions, that means both, they should be intense in that manner to have the normal vaginal delivery, and they should be frequent. They are not like that there are uterine contractions which are regular for 10 minutes and then there are no contractions, uterus is relaxed. It does not happen in normal delivery. So contractions should be with well intensity and with similar frequency. So we have to augmentation, that means stimulation of spontaneous contractions both in frequency and intensity, that are considered inadequate for successful delivery. Those contractions which are not proper or which are not adequate to conduct the normal delivery, so we have to induce these types of contractions in that patient. Elective induction means initiation of labor at term pregnancy without any medical or obstetric indication. That means elective induction. Now this purpose of induction of labor. This purpose of induction of labor, when there is risk of continuation of pregnancy either to mother or fetus. At that point we prefer for induction of labor. That means that continuity of pregnancy will cause some problem for that lady, or that may lead to complication of that fetus. So we have to terminate that pregnancy, we have to induce the labor. So that is the important, and that is the indication for the labor. We have to induce the labor for life saving of mother and fetus. Induction of labor is indicated with the benefits of termination of pregnancy to the mother or the fetus outweigh those of continuing the pregnancy. That is the same thing, that is for a well-beingness of mother and baby. Now these are the indications for induction of labor. Indications for induction of labor are, first one is preeclampsia and eclampsia, that is hypertensive disorder in pregnancy, that means excessive blood pressure during pregnancy, that will cause serious problem for mother as well as for baby. That is the important and common indication. At that point we induce the labor. Second one is abruptio placenta, that is antepartum hemorrhage, where there is bleeding starts at after 7 months from vagina, and if this bleeding continues, that will be very dangerous for mother and fetus. So abruptio placenta is the second condition where we prefer for induction of labor. Then next will be maternal diseases, medical complications of mother, like patient with diabetes, patient with chronic renal disease, patient with gallbladder disease, like these diseases which are complicated during pregnancy. So these are maternal medical complications. Next is intrauterine growth retardation, IUGR baby, where baby's growth is not proper and baby is growth retarded. At that point we decide for induction of labor. Next is post-mature baby or post-term pregnancy, where normal delivery is not, or spontaneous vaginal delivery is not occurring. At that point we induce the labor, that we had seen in post-term pregnancy. Next is RH isoimmunization, that is RH negative pregnancy with RH positive baby, and there will be development of severe jaundice in baby, and by doing amniocentesis we can know the level of jaundice in baby, and if it is serious we have to terminate the pregnancy, we have to start the induction of labor. Next is intrauterine death of baby. If baby is dead, we are not getting the FHS and we confirm it on USG that baby is not alive. At that point there is no point in continuation of pregnancy, so we advise for induction of labor and we do the delivery and remove that baby. Next is oligohydramniosis, that means very less amniotic fluid or excessive amniotic fluid, that is polyhydramniosis. In both conditions we can take the decision for induction of labor. In oligo, as there is less fluid, baby is mostly hypoxic and chances of death, and even polyhydramniosis, there are chances severe complications for mother because of excessive fluid. So in these things also we can have induction of labor. Next is unstable lie after correction into longitudinal lie, that is baby's lie which is not stable. At that point, if baby is very much moving and baby's lie is changed, we can start the induction of labor. Next is fetus with gross congenital disease or gross congenital abnormality. If we noticed on the USG that baby have severe congenital disease, then we can start the induction of labor. Next is premature rupture of membrane, that is early rupture of membrane. In that condition also we can start the induction of labor. So these are the indications for induction of labor. Now, contraindications for induction of labor. Those were indications. At those points we can start the induction of labor. We induce the artificial labor pains. These are contraindications. In these conditions we cannot start the artificial labor. And main condition, important condition is CPD, and in that condition cephalopelvic disproportion with contracted pelvis, where pelvis is very short and there is gross CPD. We had seen CPD, that is cephalopelvic disproportion. There may be contracted pelvis or large baby. So whenever there is contracted pelvis, there is no point in starting labor, because if we start the labor and if pelvis is contracted, there will be no progress and there will be obstruction of baby in that pelvis, because pelvis size is very small. So CPD is the main contraindication for this induction of labor. We cannot start the labor in CPD because that causes obstruction and rupture and death of that mother. So we should not start induction in CPD patients. Next is malpresentations or abnormal presentations like breech, transverse. If baby is transverse or breech and we give the induction of labor by injections or like that things, but that will cause again obstruction in the baby cannot move in that position, and that because of the excessive labor pains, there will be chances of rupture and death of that baby as well as fetus, the death of mother as well as that fetus. So in abnormal presentations of baby, we should not start induction of labor. Next is previous LSCS or previous cesarean. In these conditions also we cannot have induction of labor, because previous cesarean can rupture the scar because of the artificial induction of labor. So we cannot, we should not give induction of labor trial for previous cesarean patients. Then patients with unexplained vaginal bleeding, placenta previa, history of APH or unexplained vaginal bleeding or like that things, in those also we should not give trial of induction of labor. Next is patient with active genital herpes infections, because viral infections can cause severe problems, so we should not give trial. High risk pregnancy with fetal comprise like pregnancy with high risk factors that are not suitable for induction. Next is patient with heart disease, patient with any pelvic tumor. Next is patient that is elderly primigravida with obstetric or medical complications. That means patient who is pregnant but age is more than 30 to 35, that is elderly primi with some medical complications. Then baby with umbilical cord prolapse. If umbilical cord is seen out of vagina or out of genital tract, at that condition we should not give trial, because that cord can compress and baby may become baby have asphyxia or hypoxia, and that may cause death of baby. So we should not start labor in that condition. Again, next and rare complication is cancer of cervix. Because of the cancer spread of cancer in cervix, we should not start the induction of labor, and basically we should not give trial of vaginal delivery in cancer patients. So these are the things where we avoid for induction of labor. So these were contraindications. Now these are the dangers of induction of labor. These are some complications or the danger factors for induction of labor. Maternal factors are because of this psychological upset of mother. Usually there is a thing where there is common belief that C-section or caesarean section is dangerous for mother. So many patients are afraid of this caesarean, or many patients or relatives are not interested for caesarean section. This is because of lack of education and lack of information. C-section is also very safe, but chances of various complications and permanent complications are more in C-section, caesarean section. So many times we see that patients and relatives are not willing for caesarean section. So in that usually there is a factor that is psychological upset, because patient feel that if there is failure of induction of labor, then she will have caesarean section. So that is the main psychological things for induction of labor. So common complication or common danger is fear or psychological things. Next is prolonged labor due to this induction of labor. Although we induce the labor with proper medicine, dose of injections are properly adjusted with uterine contractions and according to patient's age and other things, still there are chances in that a patient can go in prolonged labor. Normal duration of labor, which is 8 to 10 hours for primary patients and 5 to 6 hours in multipara patients. In these type of artificially induced labor pains, where there are artificially induced labor pains, that can cause the excessive duration or labor can prolong. So there are chances of patients exhaustion, dehydration, and because of excessive pain and excessive timing for delivery, patient can go in shock. Again, because of this increased duration, patient can have very much pain and these things, prolonged labor pain. So she is, although in that pain, so she may need analgesia or excessive painkillers during labor to avoid the unnecessary pains. Next is some patients may need operative interference, because if labor does not progress, or at the end of actual labor, if patient doesn't cooperate because of the excessive labor pains, she is already exhausted, and while passage of baby, if she is very much exhausted, we have to perform some major or minor surgery. So that is artificial operative interference can be expected. Then increased morbidity, because of these things, the chances of increased morbidity are there. Fetal dangers are again premature delivery, because of we induce the labor at any stage to life saving of mother and fetus. Many a times it is for life saving of mother. So there may be birth of premature baby. If patient have APH, that is antepartum hemorrhage, usually that is seen in 7th or 8th month. So we have to induce the labor and baby will be delivered in premature stage. If patient is Rh negative, we can terminate the pregnancy at any point where there is excessive level of bilirubin in baby. So again that baby may be premature. So in these things, or in sometimes patients have excessive blood pressure, excessive diabetic level, so we induce the labor at any time in pregnancy, during pregnancy. So baby may born with prematurity. Next is hypoxia due to uterine dysfunction. Baby can have hypoxia because uterus is already we had seen the patient may go in prolonged labor and excessive uterine contractions can be there. Because of that, baby can get less oxygen and baby can be hypoxic. Prolonged labor we had discussed, because of induction of labor patient can go in prolonged labor. And operative interference, because of these things, so we have to sometime take decision for any operative procedure. So these were the fetal factors. Now these are the things or the parameters for accessing the induction of labor. Before we decide to start the induction of labor, we have to do some basic test, or we have to go through all these things. First of all, maternally we have to confirm the indications, that all the indications or whatever indications we had seen for induction of labor, patient is under that or not. If patient is hypertensive, if patient is diabetic, or those factors or indications we had discussed, patient should be fit in those factors. So proper indications of induction of labor. We should exclude the contraindications. There should not be contraindications. Bishop score should be 6 or more than that. Then clinically we have to assess the pelvic cavity, that is pelvic shape or size should be adequate. And we have to also counsel about the risk, benefits and alternatives of this induction of labor to patient as well as to family members. In starting of this lecture only, I had told proper consent of patient as well as relatives is very important, because chances of failure of induction of labor, complications of this induction of labor are very much raised. So we have to take proper consent. Next, fetal gestation age, we should ensure that fetus is properly at 34 to 36 weeks should be, but many a times it is not possible. Still we have to ensure about fetal gestation age. Next is we have to estimate fetal weight. It should be at least 1.5 to 2 kg, but sometimes the conditions are there, like patient mother have severe complications and we have to induce the labor. At that time we cannot do anything, but many a times we should estimate the fetal weight, fetal lung maturation, fetal presentation and fetal well-beingness. These things should be considered before the induction of labor. Now these Bishop score, as we had discussed in this prior access of induction of labor, that Bishop score should be more than 6. So Bishop score is this is the score where there are parameters like cervix, position of cervix, consistency of cervix, effacement of cervix, dilatation of cervix and station of baby's head. So these are things which are or these are the parameters on which score is adjusted. Now position of cervix is posterior, mid position or anterior. Anterior position is usually, and position of cervix is anterior. If it is mid position, if it is posterior, there can be complications. So for anterior there are 2 marks. Now consistency of cervix, normally it should be soft. If it is firm and medium, we can give negative marks, or 2 marks for soft cervix, 1 mark for medium and 0 for firm, because firm cervix cannot progress into labor. Cervix should be soft for labor. Now effacement of cervix. Effacement means cervix becomes thin. 60 to 70% effacement is good. 30 to 5% is average 1 mark and 0 to 30 is 0 mark. At that point we cannot decide for vaginal delivery. Dilatation should be more than 5 centimeter, that is of 3 marks. 3 to 4 centimeter is 2 and 1 to 2 centimeter is 1 mark, and if it is closed we will give 0 marks, and we cannot think of vaginal delivery if cervix is closed. Station, baby's head at the level of cervix, if it is below the pelvis, that is 3 marks. If it is at the level, it is 2 marks. If it is above the pelvic cavity, it will be 1, and if it is and the abdomen, then it is 0. That means no possibility of vaginal delivery. Baby's head is already not entered in pelvis, that means 0 marks. So we cannot decide about vaginal delivery. So every parameter have got these types of marks, and if patient cervix is proper, that we give 3 marks. Consistency is very soft, again 3 marks. 100% or 80% effacement, again 3. Dilatation more than 5, again 3. And station, if at the level of pelvis or below the pelvis, we will give 2 marks. So these are the things where score is, total score consists of 13 marks. Favorable in between 6 to 13, and unfavorable it is 0 to 5. Unfavorable means at that point we have to choose for cesarean section. Patient is not fit for this vaginal delivery. So that is about Bishop's score. On this score we have to decide whether that patient should be selected for induction of labor or not. If the score is 0 to 5, in between 0 to 5, we should avoid for induction of labor as well as vaginal delivery, because there is no effacement, cervix is already very firm, it is closed, baby's head is in the abdomen. At that point we should not give any trial of vaginal delivery. Patient should be directly referred for cesarean. So this is the Bishop's score. This is again a short question on Bishop's score. So that is Bishop's score, which consists of these parameters, and every parameter have got its score. So 6 to 13 score can be taken for vaginal delivery or for induction of labor. So that is about Bishop's score. This is again a modified thing where we can have some things like cervix, length of cervix, dilatation of cervix, consistency, position, and fetal head. So this is again modified Bishop's score. Now next is factors for successful induction of labor. That means period of gestation, that means period of pregnancy. It should be near the term. That is again the important factor, or the factor which is favorable for our induction of labor. That is, pregnancy should be near the term or post-term pregnancy. It's good to terminate the pregnancy at post-term or after full term. After full term, as baby's growth is completed, we can have safe induction of labor. So first factor is period of gestation. Next is Bishop's score. If it is more than 6, at least more than 6, then good. Everything is favorable, we can have safe vaginal delivery. So Bishop's score is the second factor. Next is dilatation of cervix. Again, that consists of Bishop's score only. Dilatation of cervix comes in Bishop's score only, but still if dilatation is favorable, that is the factor for induction of labor. Next is sensitivity. Oxytocin sensitivity test is usually performed. Oxytocin is an injection which induces the labor pains. So if patient is very sensitive to oxytocin, she can have sufficient labor pains. So labor can easily progress. So that is again the factor for successful induction. Next is cervical ripening, that is favorable in Paris woman in case with PROM. Cervical ripening means changes of cervix, that is cervical softening, effacement and other things. If they are favorable, usually they are favorable in parity patients like primary para patients. The cervical ripening is slow, but in multipara patients it is very fast. So this is again the factor. Prolonged, as in primary patients it is slow, cervical changes are slow in primary patients. So sometimes trial of induction of labor in primary patient is little bit risky. Next is presentation of this swab, but it is not commonly considered as in clinical test. but these are the factors for successful induction of labor. That means if patient has completed her full term or 36 weeks of pregnancy, that is safe patient. Patients with Bishop score more than 6, again safe patient. With good dilatation of cervix, if she is sensitive for oxytocin, that will be another favorable factor. If cervical ripening changes are positive, that means patient will have successful vaginal delivery. So these are factors for successful delivery. This is the cervical ripening, where there is biochemical change in cervix and because of the hormones, and that causes softening of cervix. So cervical ripening is very important, because if cervix shows this ripening, that means if cervix shows thinning and dilatation, then only labor is possible. If cervix is closed, if it does not open, then vaginal delivery is not at all possible. So cervical ripening is very important. So for cervical ripening, if naturally cervical ripening takes place, then vaginal delivery will be very easy. But in induction of labor, as natural cervical ripening is not possible, we have to induce this cervical ripening by medical methods or surgical methods or combined methods. So first of all, medical methods. Common drug used for cervical ripening is prostaglandin. Prostaglandin is available in the form of gel, tablet or suppository. Gels are used on cervix, and that causes softening of cervix, and this is very important for uterine contraction as well as for cervical dilatation. Next is tablet of prostaglandin. This is misoprostol. Misoprostol tablet or prostaglandin tablets are used vaginally as well as orally for induction of labor. That causes usually this tablet leads to cervical ripening as well as uterine contraction, so labor can be start easily. So this is about prostaglandins which are available in the form of gel, which is applied locally, and tablets locally or orally, and these prostaglandins usually initiate the cervical change, cervical ripening or cervical dilatation, and also start the uterine contraction. So these are the prostaglandin, use of prostaglandin. Next is oxytocin. Oxytocin is usually progesterone. Oxytocin is the important hormone which causes the uterine contraction, and because of the increased receptor of oxytocin as well as progesterone, that causes increased uterine contractions, and the sufficient uterine contractions will lead to vaginal delivery. Again, there is progesterone receptor antagonist that we called as mifepristone. Mifepristone is used for induction of labor. Actually, this mifepristone we had discussed in induction of abortion also, and this mifepristone is this hormone act against the progesterone, so that causes induction of this labor. It starts the labor pains. So oxytocin and this mifepristone or progesterone antagonist is used in combination, so that uterine contractions can easily start and labor progress will take place in rapid manner. So these are the things which commonly used as a medical method for induction of labor. Medically, induction of labor usually we do in IUD patients, premature rupture of membrane patients, or patients with some unknown factors, or patients with diabetic mellitus, patients with hypertension. So in this condition we induce the labor by medicinal method. These are the safe method. That means medical induction of labor takes place by giving orally prostaglandin tablets as well as local application of these prostaglandins. Because of this prostaglandin, labor pain starts, cervical changes start, cervix becomes soft, as well as we give oxytocin, injectable oxytocin in IV fluid, that causes uterine contractions, and these contractions are sufficient in frequency as well as in duration, and for actual induction of labor we give progesterone antagonist, that is mifepristone. So this is the course of medicine for induction of labor. By giving this we start the labor pains in that patient. Now these were the medical methods. Now surgical methods are artificial rupture of membrane. That means we rupture the membrane, artificially we rupture the membrane. We rupture the membrane by using any sterile instrument. Usually there is Amni hook is there for rupture of membrane, but we can rupture with any autoclaved instrument. And after rupturing of this membrane, there is a method which is called as stripping the membranes. That means we do the stripping of that membrane. We increases the space of that genital cavity, or we give the stripping method. That means we do the proper PV examination. That in stripping we lead to in stripping of membrane we separate the wall of cervix from the uterine segment. Repeated PV examination in particular manner so that cervix is separated and there is sufficient space is there for passage of baby. So we do the stripping of membrane. Artificial rupture of membrane, just now we had discussed. We rupture the membrane by Amni hook or by any artery forceps. Mechanical dilator or these any dilators or laminaria can be used for rupture of membrane. Sometimes balloon catheter is used, but commonly rupture of membrane with artery forceps or Amni hook is done. And stripping of membrane, that means we do the PV examination in upward and inward direction so that we separate the membranes from the wall of cervix and lower uterine segment. Again, these are the things in which we induce medical methods for IUD, PROM patients. Surgically, we do the induction of labor in abruptio placenta, hydramniosis, preeclampsia or eclampsia, or in both. And combined, that means medical induction, we give the patient injections as well as medicine for induction of labor, as well as we do the surgical procedure, that is we rupture the membrane artificially and we do the stripping. So that is combined thing. Prostaglandins, as we had discussed, PGE2, that is for contraction, ripening, both way action. Prostaglandins orally, this is the tablet or gel which have properties for myometrium contraction, that is uterine contraction, and there are some side effects because of this prostaglandin. Again, this mifepristone have this misoprostol have action of cervical ripening, contraction, and what is the dose it is given, and side effects are also given. This is about oxytocin mode of action. Usually it have the uterine contraction. Usually IV fluid, it is given in IV infusion, and it is very early pregnancy, high dose of oxytocin is required. Third trimester, sensitivity increases. Side effects are hypoxia, death, fetal death, and some side effects are nausea, vomiting. So this is about oxytocin. Oxytocin is very important for induction of labor. Rather, this is the important injection or medicine which can have this induction of labor. This is about a dosage of oxytocin. This is mifepristone. Along with oxytocin, we give this mifepristone for induction of labor. This causes induction of labor with cervical ripening. Dosage is given, and some side effects are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache. These are the things or comparison of this. So this is about induction of labor. Mainly induction of labor, usually we prefer in patients who have some complications, maternal complications and fetal complications. For life saving of mother or fetus, we prefer induction of labor in which normal or spontaneous labor is not possible, like in postpartum pregnancy. where spontaneous delivery has not taken place. So induction of labor, we choose the patient, there we have some indications for induction of labor. Patient should be safe without any major complications, with proper pelvic size, and baby should be alive and proper weight of baby. If at all baby is dead, we have to induce the labor, but normally baby's criteria are baby's weight and age, gestational age should be satisfying. On that basis we select the patient. High risk patients, patients with contracted pelvis and other factors, we directly refer the patient for cesarean. So we have to basically choose the patient. Indicated patients are taken for induction of labor. This induction of labor can be done by three ways: medical, surgical or combined. Medically we prefer prostaglandins orally as well as locally for induction of labor with cervical change. Medicinally, we give oxytocin injection in IV form along with mifepristone, and these things can induce the labor where patient starts her uterine contraction with cervical dilatation. Okay, these things are happen spontaneously or simultaneously. Along with this, or sometimes separately, in some patient where we cannot give this oxytocin hormone or we cannot give the prostaglandins, in those patients we do the surgical method. In surgical method, we do the artificial rupture of membrane, where we rupture the membrane, and stripping method, that is repeated PV examination in particular manner so that membranes can be separated from cervix and uterus, so that baby can easily pass from that space. Combined means using of both methods, medical as well as surgical method. That means giving prostaglandins, oxytocin along with rupture of membrane and stripping. So these are the methods for induction of labor, and that is induction of labor.